Shocking truth: why Israel-Judah fought at midnight, a devastating divide never told. In the deepest shadows of history, a conflict ignited under the moon's watchful gaze, one steeped in secrets and betrayal, forever hidden behind the pages of official records. Midnight whispered tales of tension and treachery, a time when the air chills and the heart races with the thrill of the unknown. Why did the people of Israel and Judah collide in such a dark hour? What sinister motives lurked behind the clash? This isn't just history, it's a tempest of emotions and unanswered questions begging to explode. As the clock struck 12, a terrifying battle unfolded beneath a blanket of stars. Can you imagine the sounds? The clash of swords ringing out like thunder, the cries of soldiers cutting through the stillness, each echo reverberating in the bones of onlookers. Suddenly, the world seemed smaller, every breath tense with anticipation. The night felt alive, electric, as if the land itself was holding its breath, awaiting the revelation of dark secrets. An eerie fog wrapped itself around the combatants, shrouding them in uncertainty and fear. The grass sodden with sweat and blood painted a vivid picture of sacrifice and desperation. But hold on, what of the mystery that lurked deep within this chaos? A strange inscription found by a lone scout, where did it lead? Whispers spoke of a hidden treasure, one that could shift the balance of power between the feuding kingdoms. It was a hidden map, folded tightly in an ancient scroll, said to show the way to something powerful, something worth killing for. And here's the kicker: it vanished without a trace right before dawn slipped into view. How could a piece of parchment hold such weight in the clash of two nations? The questions nodding in the air thickened the tension. Who was behind the disappearance? The timing of it all couldn't simply be a coincidence. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Now, back to the fray. The battle raged on, fury and passion mingling in the chaotic dance of war. As swords swung and shields collided, the tension heightened. This wasn't just a fight, it was a display of deep-seated animosities and unresolved grievances stretching back generations. But the worst was yet to come. Amidst the chaos, strange omens appeared, unexplainable phenomena that chilled the very marrow in their bones. Shadows flickered, creating ghosts of doubt and suspicion amongst comrades who once stood shoulder to shoulder. What dark forces danced in the forgotten corners of that night? And there, in the heat of battle, a figure emerged, a warrior shrouded in myth, rumored to belong to neither side. With eerie calm, he began to chant, his words weaving a spell that left even the bravest warriors frozen in place. What power ran through this mysterious fighter, and could it sway the outcome of this clash? Did he hold the key to peace, or was he a harbinger of doom? The midnight hour dragged on, and as dawn approached, all eyes locked on this enigmatic figure. Who would survive, and what truth would finally burst into the light? The answers felt so tantalizingly close yet impossibly out of reach, leaving a burning question hanging above like a storm cloud ready to burst. What secrets would be uncovered as this tale spun further into the shadows? The air grew heavier as the soldiers' chant reverberated like an ancient drumbeat against the fabric of the night. Eyes widened with fear and curiosity, the very essence of battle seemed to hang in a fragile balance. Each word the warrior uttered cleaved through the chaos, creating a mightier silence than anyone thought possible, as if the whole world implored the breath of fate to take a different turn. Who was this figure? With disheveled hair that whipped in the wind and armor polished to a dull sheen, he did not fit within the ranks of either Israel or Judah. His presence was like a storm, wild and unpredictable, yet ultimately mesmerizing. As the clash of swords slowed, some warriors lowered their weapons, compelled to listen. Was it hope that glimmered in those moments, or an insidious dread? Fear clawed at their insides. Had they dared stray from their paths, lulled by the haunting melodies coursing from this stranger's lips? The battle's fury faltered, the magical spell of this unknown warrior captivating them like moths drawn to a flame. Then, the world tilted on its axis when a voice echoed from the fray. A soldier from Israel, sweat-soaked and trembling, yelled out between gasps, "He speaks of a curse." The map's theft was the start of this nightmare. Gasps hushed the lingering sound of weapons, a curse, spoken of in shadows for ages, weaving itself into the threads of their fate. At once, the battlefield spun into chaos again. Fueled by the diffracted light of dawn creeping over the horizon and ignited by the relentless pull of vengeance, the warriors plunged back into their blood-soaked dance. But now, nourished by fear, their circumstances morphed into a hunt for whispers, wrecked relationships, and shared shadows. Who had stolen the map, and what ancient evil had paved this dreadful path? With each swing of a sword, suspicion sparked like dry kindling in the air. Accusations flew, friendships shattered. The battle became a cruel reflection of their hidden fears, a mirror of past grudges that poisoned their hearts. Friends became foes, and brothers sought revenge, yet, despite the wrath swirling like a tempest, a few dared to steal glances at the mysterious warrior, who remained pinned by the horror of his own unsettling prophecy. Did he draw power from the words of those he entranced, or was he merely a pawn in a game far greater than the bloodshed around him? Then, just as dawn threatened to push away the vestiges of night, a blood-curdling scream split the air. The warrior dropped to his knees, pale, as if summoning something dreadful from within. The stir of ominous forces rumbled between the clashing nations, and a dark haze began to swirl at his feet, coiling it amongst the roots of the ancient trees that surrounded the field. "What have you unleashed?" a voice trembled. It came from one of the elders, a man who had lived through battles and seen hellish visions, now confronted with the very demons he had feared. As the tormented skies erupted and forces unseen began to churn, every single warrior felt the enormity of the moment. Would ancient horrors swallow them whole? Would this stranger's chant stir forces that could engulf both Israel and Judah? Suddenly, the warning was clear. The map held promises of power and ruin, and time was running out. In the fading light, with shadows growing longer, the question loomed larger than the battle itself. Could they escape the past that hung heavy with blood, or would they repeat it until nothing, not even whispers, remained? Would anyone truly survive to tell the tale? The battlefield braced itself for the answer. The dark haze thickened, tendrils of shadow curling and sliding like serpents across the soil. Gasps erupted from the soldiers, eyes wide in disbelief and terror. Lightning cracked sharply overhead, illuminating faces painted with fear, revealing the raw, trembling humanity behind armor and weaponry. "What do we do?" a soldier shouted, voice strained. Panic was a tangible pulse on the battlefield now, a living thing that darted from warrior to warrior. The chant had stirred something primal, something long buried, and it seemed alive. "Stand your ground," barked an officer, though his voice betrayed uncertainty. He gripped his sword tighter, knuckles white against the metal, as if it could somehow shield him from the encroaching darkness, and then, as the clouds overhead churned menacingly, that foreign warrior, the one who had spun the tale of curses, gasped as he fought against the rising dread clawing at his chest. The map, it wasn't just a map. His voice trembled, echoing through the fog of disbelief. It was a key, the key to a door that should have remained shut. The elders exchanged glances, whispering amongst themselves. "What do you mean? A door to what?" Fear stained the elder's voice, turning every word sharp as a blade. "An ancient power unguarded for too long," the warrior replied, rising shakily to his feet, breath hitching. "What we've been fighting over is much more than land or gold. We've unwittingly invited the past back. We've unleashed what was meant to be forgotten." In that moment, a flicker of understanding glinted in the eyes of a soldier nearby. The legends, the stories of those who vanished, whole battalions erased from history, they must be connected. The ground beneath began to tremble as if it too shared in the horror unraveling. Individuals felt the pull of suspicion creep back in, igniting an old spark. Fingers tightened around familiar weapons. Who among them had attacked and robbed to get the map? Was it their own comrades who had damned them all? But the warrior pressed on, urgency pouring from him like sweat. Stop this. You're fighting each other while the real enemy waits in the shadows. This isn't just Israel or Judah anymore, it's a fight for existence itself. Enough of this, shouted a voice laced with rage. An infantryman brandished his sword at the warrior, desperation spilling over into violence. You speak of demons but offer no salvation. A low rumble punctuated the air, thunder rolling ominously above them, creeping dread settling in. The warrior's eyes widened, and he opened his mouth to speak, hoping against hope to sway them before it was too late. You can only save yourselves if you join forces. Otherwise, we become the very tools of darkness we fear. At that moment, a resounding crack of thunder split the sky. The ground bucked, throwing soldiers off balance. Before anyone could react, an unseen barrier seemed to snap around them. Shadows twirled into grotesque shapes, whispering promises and threats all at once. What is this? A soldier cried, shaking in both fear and confusion. Dread pooled as figures began to rise from the depths of dark mist. Ghostly forms, angry and lost, emerged from the haze, reeking of rancor and vengeance. They had returned to claim those who dug up the past. As soldiers stumbled back, faces waxed pale, and blades clashed in a frenzied attempt to dispel the darkness. The mysterious warrior lunged forward, pulling out a glimmering stone from his armor, the heart of the map. We must make a choice, he shouted above the chaos. We can either forge a path through darkness together or let whatever lies beyond take us. In that fleeting moment, the battlefield teetered on the edge. Would they unite against a common threat or let mistrust tear them apart? And as the ghostly figures advanced, roaring with unearthly fury, one truth resonated in their hearts: the real battle was about to begin, and the cost of survival would be higher than any of them could imagine. Would they grasp the power to confront their past, or would they let it consume them? The answer hovered just beyond reach, buried in the shadows. The air was thick with panic and despair. Soldiers were stepping back, eyes darting, breaths coming in quick gasps. The battlefield had become a stage for nightmares, and the darkness was eager to claim its audience. Ghostly figures writhed, their forms twisting and turning like smoke in the wind, eyes glowing with a hunger that struck fear deep within every heart. Stay together, the officer barked, voice cracking in pitch. He brought his sword forward, though the trembling in his hands betrayed his bravado. We can fight this. The specters howled, their wails woven from sorrow and rage, pulling at the strings of fear that had already taken root in the soldiers' hearts. One soldier stumbled, tears in his eyes, unable to distinguish the lines between friend and foe. What if we're the monsters? He whimpered. Beside him, another soldier gripped his spear with white-knuckled determination. If we fall to the shadows, they will consume our souls. We have to stand and fight. His voice rang out, a desperate attempt to rally the wavering spirits around him, but the warrior, having revealed the secret of the map, stood amidst the chaos, holding the shimmering stone high above his head, its light cutting through the encroaching shadow. This is our only chance. We do not even understand what we've unleashed, he shouted, his voice slicing through the tumult. Join me. We can use this power. The soldiers hesitated, some looked at each other in distrust, their heartbeats matching the thundering storm around them. We can't trust you, shouted one of the elders, stepping forward, his face twisted with doubt. How can we be sure you're not leading us into a trap of your own? The warrior's gaze hardened. It's not my trust you need to worry about, it's the darkness that longs to claim you. You either trust in each other, or you perish. This power is not meant for one. It binds and strengthens when shared. Before doubts could fester, the ghosts surged forward. They screamed a sound that rattled bones and sent chills through marrow. The soldiers drew their weapons, hearts pounding like war drums. Stand and fight. The officer called, his shout drowned by the roaring wind. The soldiers moved, marching forward into the darkness. Blades clanged, and the battle erupted, a cacophony of fear and defiance, but the shadows were relentless, pouring over the soldiers like an avalanche. One by one, they fell. The warrior plunged into the heart of the melee, infusing strength through the stone, light flashing in waves, momentarily dispelling the shadows around him. Together! He cried, as he fought to link the soldiers' courage, and then, through the swirling chaos, a light flickered, cutting through the blackness and illuminating a vision. A figure cloaked in light stood beyond the chaos, its features indiscernible yet powerful. You are the architects of your fate. Only unity and sacrifice can rewrite this story. The words echoed through the clamoring minds of the soldiers, and a collective gasp filled the air. Was this an ally or yet another trick by the entrenched darkness? That glimmer of light urged them on, igniting something far stronger than fear-hope. But just as they began to rally, the ground beneath them cracked open. A dark chasm yawned wide, pulling at their feet, threatening to swallow them whole. The shadows cackled delightedly, sensing the opportunity to isolate and consume. Fight it! An anguished voice rang out as a soldier reached for his fell comrades, desperately trying to pull them back from the abyss. But the darkness dragged harder, an unrelenting force nobody could see or fight against. In that defining moment, the bonds of friendship and allegiance shattered under the weight of survival. The question hung in the air, thick with dread: would they hold each other in unity, or would fear tear them apart forever? As the void loomed larger, ready to devour them whole, a reality shone bright through the chaos. The line between salvation and doom was razor-thin. Could they harness the very power that sought to control them back against their enemy? Or would one fatal decision seal their fates? The answer ebbed beneath their breath, trembling on the cusp of chaos. What sacrifice lay ahead, and would it be enough to break the chains of their darkest fears? The rumble of the ground was a cruel promise, a tease of the chaos to come. The soldiers faltered, anxiety ripping through their ranks as the chasm threatened to unravel them. Their eyes showed desperation, a myriad of emotions battling in the depths of their sockets. Fear swelled, each heartbeat echoed like a skull drum, foreboding and relentless. Hold on, the officer shouted, his resolve fading, yet somehow still fragilely intact. He thrust his sword toward the nearest soldier, desperation spilling from his lips. We cannot give in to despair. The warrior could feel the ebb of energy, the shimmering stone pulsed with the desperation around him. He had one shot. Link spirits. He yelled. We must share our fears and joy. Form a chain. His words stumbled unevenly over the howls of the shadows wrapping closer, around him. Soldiers exchanged nervous glances, their hearts a wild storm. Would they genuinely stand together? Or would they surrender to the icy grasp of fear? The hesitation lingered like fog, heavy and thick. Then, driven by a guttural instinct deep within, a soldier stepped forward, bravery alight in his features. He's right. We need to trust. He caught the eye of his friend, their past camaraderie igniting a fire in that moment. We've survived this far together. We can't turn our backs on each other now. As if struck by lightning, soldiers began to step forward in unison, forming a circle around the warrior. The bond glimmered with promise, they might yet defy the darkness. The spectral shadows recoiled momentarily, sensing the shift. Join hands. The warrior urged, his voice rising above the chaos. Feel the strength in numbers. Feel the light. One by one, they reached out, fingers interlocking, breath synchronizing, forming a chain of defiance against the dark. Light erupted from the stone, washing over them like an unfurling dawn. It enveloped their bodies, illuminating the chaos around them. In the light, faces reflected purpose, a complex mixture of relief and vigor. The fear began to melt away, but then, with a tempestuous roar, the shadows lunged, twisting and writhing in a fury. They craved the unity that now bound the soldiers. The darkness surged forward like a tidal wave, growing sharper, more voracious. Focus! The warrior shouted deeply, clinging to the stone. channel everything into the light. Our fears, our hopes, our very souls. Beyond the tumult, flickers of the cloaked figure still danced in the edges of their vision, whispering echoes of strength. The soldiers felt their connection, a fierce current running through them, winding like tendrils of smoke. They held on tight, hearts racing to one drumbeat, a collective heart. Just as the shadows clawed at their bonds, something extraordinary happened. The light shifted, spinning and flickering into a whirlwind, swirling around their group with abandon. Gasps littered the air, as the shadows shrieked, twisting against the overwhelming force of hope ignited from despair. With every moment that ticked by, the chasm gaped wider, seemingly mocking their resolve. But the gathered souls did not waver. With each pulse from the stone came a surge of energy that lit up the darkness with a fierce brightness. Together, they screamed as one voice, threading their hopes into an unbreakable tapestry, strong enough to challenge the very essence of their nightmare. But just when they believed they could hold the darkness at bay, a sudden frigid gust hit, plunging them into confusion, unraveling their newfound strength. The shadows morphed, clinging tighter, ready to unknit every bond they forged. "Don't let go!" the officer cried, eyes wild with primal fear. As they fought to maintain their chain, a deafening silence closed around them, suffocating hope. The light flickered unsteadily, a dying ember against the encroaching shadows, and then came a voice, hushed yet resonating through everything. "You must choose, or the shadows will consume you all." Each soldier's gaze turned inward, searching for an answer. Who would risk everything? Who could be the sacrifice that held their tangled threads together? The question hung like a blade in the air, sharp and unforgiving. What would they do next? Would desperation become their undoing, or would they rise as one against the depths of despair? The air crackled with tension, every soldier feeling the pulse of dread that coursed through their veins. Faces that once brimmed with light now dulled under the weight of uncertainty. Someone must step forward. The warrior hollered, panic creeping into the urgency of his voice. "We can't let the shadows take us. We must trust one of us to hold this chain together. Who will stand?" The silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the whispers of unseen specters that seemed to mock their indecision. Each soldier grappled with a paralyzing fear. What if they stepped forward, only to be consumed in the darkness? "I'll go." A voice, trembling yet steadfast, broke the stillness. It was the youngest soldier, barely more than a boy, his features flushed with fear yet burning with determination. "This is our only chance. We can't give in to the dark." "I'll hold on." "No." An older soldier interjected, stepping forward, panic etched in his brow. "You can't. You'll be lost. You don't know what you're asking." The boy's gaze sharpened. "But we're all lost if someone doesn't try. If it's me, then it's me." His hands trembled, but his resolve stood firm. A flick of light from the stone ignited the surrounding shadows, revealing eyes stitched together from countless nightmares, hungry and relentless. The shadows snarled, tightening their grip on the bonds of unity that had just been forged. "Enough!" roared the officer. He stepped into the circle, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "This isn't just about one of us. It's about all of us. If you're willing to sacrifice, then we all must be ready to follow." A murmur rippled through the ranks, soldiers exchanging glances heavy with unshed tears and unspoken fears. Would they abandon one of their own to save the rest? There was nothing dearer than life, their lives. "I will face it with him," declared another soldier, stepping forward with fists clenched. "We do this together." And miraculously, one by one, more soldiers began to join, until it was no longer just the boy scampering toward the abyss. It became a line, a shimmering wall of defiance against a surge of darkness. "Ready?" the warrior asked, heart racing as the shadows roared back at them. The swirling mass roiled and twisted, desperately attempting to penetrate their newly formed circle. "On 3. The officer yelled, adrenaline surging. 1, 2. But before he could call out 3, the shadows lunged with a ferocity that shook the earth beneath their feet. Time seemed to slow as the soldiers gripped each other tighter, channeling their collective energy like a dam breaking. But just then, an icy voice echoed, a whisper felt through every soul. You struggle to hold on, but each one of you has a choice. Save yourself or save him. Chaos erupted. The stronghold of light flickered dangerously. A quick glance around showed fearful faces, calculations written in the furrow of brows. It was a shattering choice, an agonizing gamble where all choices spiraled into darkness. Choose. Came the unsettling command from the shadows. Choose, or perish. The stakes were higher than ever. Shouting ensued as opposing forces collided in their minds. Each heart pounded, every breath shallow. Who would let go? Who would dare save another at the cost of their own life? The weight of the decision hung heavy in the air. Who would be the first to fold, to shatter the thread that bound them all? And so it came down to a desperate moment, a decision of sacrifice, of unity against despair. With the roaring shadows nearly at their backs, they had to decide before it was too late. What would emerge from this tangled web of choice? Time ticked away, and so did their hope. What would their answer be? The shadows writhed and pulsed, a living blanket of despair that demanded more than just bravery. It demanded trust, unwavering hope, and the willingness to sacrifice everything. A chill swept through the ranks as the voice echoed deep in their minds, stirring deeper fears. Choose. It hissed again, closer now, the darkness curling around them like a serpent suffocating its prey. Don't let go, shouted the officer, his voice full of desperation. If one of us falters, we're all lost. The young boy's heart raced, his grip on the soldier beside him tightening painfully. The boy's own voice betrayed him, shaking as he urged, we can't let fear control us. We must stand together. Yet each word dripped with uncertainty. Around them, the soldiers stood frozen, some with determination etched deeply into their faces, others trembling under the weight of the choice before them. The ones who hesitated felt the shadows pulsating around them like a predator scenting hesitation, tasting the fear. Hearts thundered. The sounds surrounding them, the wind, the rustle of armor, the roar of looming despair were deafening. The shadows cackled, each laugh a cruel reminder of what awaited them should they falter. I can't lose him, one soldier whispered, his voice breaking. His eyes darted toward the boy, fear and anguish battling within him. Don't! Shouted another soldier, rage spilling into his words. You can't think of just one. This is a fight for all of us. For all of us. Echoed a chorus of voices, a tremor of bravery breaking through. But doubt coursed through the ranks, like a dark river threatening to sweep them all away. One by one, faces fell, reflecting the internal struggle that tore at them. Hope teetered on the precipice. Then what do we do? A woman among them cried out, her eyes wide with panic. We can't just stand here and wait for darkness to swallow us whole. Yes, shouted the boy, forcing himself to stand taller. If we choose to save one, we choose to save all. We can find strength in unity. The shadows recoiled at his words, hissing as if burned. But the power of the boy's resolve sparked something within the others. Slowly, hands began to rise, voices began to match his defiance. Together, called out the officer, strength flooding his tone. We hold this chain. No one is alone. In that moment, a new energy sprang within the group, a fierce light igniting deep in their souls. Even the shadows hesitated, releasing a symphony of anguished howls as they wrestled with the sudden illumination of hope. But then, just as belief began to flourish, the icy voice spoke again, much softer now, yet deeply menacing. Foolish mortals. The shadows do not forgive. One life for another, that's the cost of your unity. The soldiers' resolve quivered under this new weight. They realized their unity would not come without sacrifice. Who would pay, and who would be spared? The air filled with dread as they stared at each other, eyes wide in horror. Time began to slip away again, each moment stretching into eternity. Whispers of fate clawed at their hearts. "Will we stand firm?" the boy asked, his voice trembling with determination. "Or will we let ourselves fall into the dark?" In that brief silence, they felt the ground shifting beneath them. They were standing on the edge of chaos, the divide growing deeper. Would they be willing to plunge into the unknown for the sake of another? As the shadows lunged once more, crackling with malicious energy, the choice loomed larger than ever. But just then, amidst the turmoil, an unexpected figure appeared from the darkness. Who was it? Was this a savior or more treachery? A figure stepped from the shadows, cloaked in a veil of dark fabric that seemed to blend with the very essence of the night. The soldiers braced themselves, fear pooling in their chests. Who could this be? Friends were supposed to come from the light, not from the darkness. The newcomer moved with an eerie grace, the hem of their cloak swirling like a fog around them. A hood obscured their face, but the silhouette alone sent shivers through the ranks. The soldiers exchanged fearful glances, their hearts pounding in unison, echoing the dread that flooded the air. "Do not fear me," the figure whispered, voice like silk woven with ice. "I'm here to offer a choice a way out." The officer stepped forward, vehement indignation flaring in his eyes. "What are you? Another trick of this darkness?" "No trick," they replied softly. "I am what you need. I can show you how to escape, at a price." "What kind of price?" the boy asked, stepping cautiously closer, curiosity igniting in the depths of his fear. The figure paused, as if weighing the boy's innocent eyes. "To erase this darkness, one must embrace a greater shadow. Unearth a sacrifice, willingly take on a piece of this despair, and in return, you shall be free." Gasps echoed around him, hearts thudding while the air thickened with uncertainty. The boy's resolve wavered. How could they trust this stranger? But the shadows roared, diving closer, drawn by the scent of their trepidation. "Then what would we become?" the officer demanded, fists clenched tight. "What would we pay?" "You would step away from your light. In exchange for sparing yourself and your companions, one must embrace the shadow fully. That soul will become one with the darkness at your service, an ever-watchful protector of this realm, bound to do your bidding." Whispers darted through the group, fear transforming to anguish. Would they dare to entrust their ally to the void? What would become of them if a brave soul vanished into the night forever? "I will do it." The trembling soldier who had once hesitated shouted, his face pale but fierce. "I can't let fear take over. We can't let the end take us without a fight." "No!" the boy cried, lunging towards him, panic squeezing his throat. "You can't!" But the shadows surged forward, flooding the space between them, curling into vicious tendrils. The offer hung heavy in the air, a dark cloud of choice shrouded in madness. Laughter erupted from the figure, a mocking cascade that sent chills across their skin. "See what the darkness does? It riles them up. What if they understood the cost? Fear drives them, turning friends against each other." Each soldier braced for a response, but the boy found himself paralyzed by indecision. Was he willing to risk everyone for one? Or allow the sacrifice to unfold as shadows devoured their resolve? "Together." The officer's voice carried through the cacophony, bolstered by rising resolve from newfound hope. "We will fight. We will. The darkness will not be so easily vanquished, sold with mere words," the cloaked figure said, their voice low and dangerous. "It craves pain, and it measures loyalty with loss. The shadows will not let you leave without blood." The boy felt the weight of eyes upon him, their desperation heavy with uncertainty. Would one of them take the plunge into darkness willingly, or would they face the howling void together? "You have a choice." The figure extended a hand, beckoning them closer, inscrutable shadows swirling around their fingers. "Choose wisely, for time is running short." The boy's heart raced. He could almost feel the darkness clawing at his ankles. What would their final choice be? Clenching his fists, he, alongside the others, stood at the edge, teetering between light and despair. Each heartbeat echoed the truth they couldn't deny. They were living the precipice of an unspeakable dilemma. Would darkness consume them whole? Or would they find a way to sever the bond that threatened to drag them into an eternity of loss? As the shadows closed in, the question lingered in the air: who would they choose to lose, and what did their next move truly mean? The air crackled as the soldiers grappled with the figure's chilling proposition. Time twisted, seconds stretching into eternity. The boy's heartbeat thundered in his ears, drowning out everything. The thought of losing someone, of surrendering a friend to the darkness, felt like a noose tightening around his throat. "Wait!" he shouted, forcing out the words amidst the growing hysteria. "There must be another way. There has to be." The officer's brow furrowed. "And what way do you suggest, child? We're standing at the edge of oblivion. Do you see the shadows? They are hungry." A flicker of doubt crossed the officer's strong facade. The rest of the soldiers shifted nervously, eyes darting from him to the figure. Would anyone dare to challenge the darkness? "Enough!" The cloaked figure's voice rang out, cold and commanding. "You stand on doomed ground. Only through sacrifice can you hope to reclaim your light. Otherwise, the shadows will take you all." A sickening swirl of fear and urgency gripped the boy's stomach. What if the officer was right? What if the shadows truly craved a life? "You would take a life to save yourselves," the boy protested, his voice cracking. "Your cowardice will lead to your downfall," the figure said, leaning closer, shadows curling tighter. "You cling to false hope while the darkness surrounds you. Nobody escapes without a cost." The trembling soldier who had declared bravely, the one who would sacrifice himself, stood with steely determination. "I won't be afraid. I'll do it for them. For all of us." "Stop!" The boy lunged forward, panting. "You don't need to listen to him." The officer's voice cut through, fierce with determination. "We will fight together. This isn't the end, it's a trap. It's a trick of the darkness, trying to tear us apart." The cloaked figure's laughter echoed through the clearing, a sound that reverberated with ancient malice. "Wonderful. Watch them squirm. Loyalty? Fear? The shadows thrive on these ties." The boy's mind raced. He remembered stories, echoes of the past, tales that warned of such darkness. What if we unite our will against it? Combined strength might push back. "Hope is a sweet lie," the figure sang, voice like honey coated in venom. "Those who hope from fear truly, it's delicious." Suddenly, a voice from the back broke through the chaos. One of the youngest soldiers, her face marked with soot and tears, shouted, "Fear only makes it stronger. We can't let it dictate our choices." The others paused, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Had they overlooked an escape in their panic? The boy's heart raced. "We need to focus. If we stand as one, refuse to choose who to give up, then maybe that's enough." "Enough for what?" the figure hissed, throwing their hands wide as shadows lunged forward, nearly snatching at the boy. "You think defiance will save you? Embrace the truth, or face despair." The darkness surged like a tidal wave, swirling around the group, desperate to swallow their resolve. But a flicker of unity ignited among the soldiers. "Together!" they shouted in unison, fists raised, hearts pounding as one. And in that moment, an unexpected light flashed in the hollow gloom, shattering the darkness like glass. The figure recoiled, momentarily stunned, the shadows retreating as if stung. "Hold your ground," the boy commanded, steeling himself. "This isn't just for one person, it's for all of us." The figure raged, voice trembling on the edge of fury. "You dare defy me? You will pay for this arrogance." The boy felt a chill of terror at their words, but he hardened his resolve, knowing the stakes had changed. We stand united. We will not be broken. But just as hope began to swell, a crack rippled through the ranks. A roar erupted from the shadows, clawing at their confidence, and the cloaked figure loomed closer, dark and furious. "Foolish children," they growled, voice tinged with dread. "The darkness has ways to reclaim what is lost. It knows you, it hungers for you." Fear gushed like ice water through the boy's veins. What had they awakened? As the figure's form began to shift, the shadows coiling like snakes, another question bubbled forth: how deep did their unity run? Could they truly venture into the night together, or would the shadows find a crack to slip through, sowing discord where hope had once flourished? The boy's voice caught, and a whisper echoed once more in the swirling shadows: would they withstand the looming horror, or would darkness claim them before dawn? As dawn's first light crept over the horizon, illuminating the bathed landscape, the ephemeral connection forged by the soldiers began to shimmer. Hope flickered, resilient yet fragile, around them as the cloaked figure loomed closer, anger crackling in the air like static before a storm. "You think you can stand against the shadows that dwell within?" The figure's voice dripped with scorn and malice. But the soldiers held firm, fear replaced with the kind of courage that comes only from knowing they were in this together. "We are not afraid," shouted the officer, his voice steady even as his heart raced. "We're broken, but we rise again. You can't break what you don't own." Shadows snarled and lunged, tendrils of darkness clawing at their heels, but the soldiers remained resolute, the warmth of their united energy pushing back against the encroaching cold. Together, they began to chant, a raw and primal sound that resonated with every terror they had faced. Together. 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 The echoes bounced off the trees, reverberating through the air as unity dispelled dread. Light erupted from the stone the warrior held high, bathing them in brilliant clarity. Time seemed to slow, each heartbeat marking the rhythm of defiance and solidarity. "No!" the cloaked figure screamed, shadows recoiling slightly from the burgeoning light. "You think mere words can protect you? You wish for unity over sacrifice? Foolishness." In that moment, understanding washed over the boy. "We don't need to sacrifice a life," he cried, grasping the hands of his comrades tightly. "We can sacrifice our fear." The shadows recoiled again, temporarily stunted by the power of their declaration. The figure, now visibly agitated, thrust forth the darkness with a wave of the hand, but the soldiers' bond had stitched together a barrier, each voice intertwining in a newfound strength that pulsed like an unyielding pulse. The boy felt a warmth surge from the stone, coursing through the chain of entwined hands. "Feel the light!" he shouted over the swelling tempest, his voice rising above the chaos. "Dispel your fear. Unite in your strength." As they channeled their hope into that light, the shadows writhed and wailed, their tendrils dancing erratically, desperately trying to penetrate the jubilant beam. But with each pulse, the darkness shuddered, as if the very foundation of its power was crumbling. The cloaked figure trembled with rage, eyes narrowing. "You think you can erase your past? The shadows you hide will continue to haunt you." "No," the young soldier said firmly, resolute. "We're not erasing it. We're confronting it." With that proclamation, an eruption of brilliant light engulfed them, flooding the battleground like dawn finally breaking the dark. The shadows writhed in fury, a turbulent entity rearguarding against the light, twisting in a final act of desperation. Then, just as hope seemed a single tear away from evaporating, a deafening roar filled the air. The figure stumbled as the light swallowed the darkness, devouring its form like fire-consuming fog. "Fools! You will regret this." The figure howled, but the shadows began to flicker, twisting in detached spirals that clawed at the edges of existence. The soldiers felt each echo blend into the warmth of their unity. "We will not regret." Their chant grew louder, a rallying cry against the dying shadows. "We will stand together." As they pressed forward, the darkness finally shattered, fragmented like glass underfoot. The sun's light poured through the void, dispelling the remnants of fear. When the last wail of the figure faded into the wind, the soldiers slowly lowered their weapons. Gasping breaths mingled with disbelief, a realization creeping amongst them. They had done it. Together, the boy turned to the warrior, whose eyes glimmered with pride. "You showed us how," he said softly, the weight of hope filling the silence that followed. "No," the warrior responded, breathing heavily but not without a hint of a smile. "You showed yourselves. The choice to stand in unity was always within you." As the first rays of dawn warmed their skin, the soldiers began to gather their fallen. Words flowed easily now, filled with laughter and camaraderie, hope bubbling just beneath the surface like spring blooms breaking through winter's chill. They had faced darkness and emerged whole, but most importantly, they had learned not just to fight but to connect. To remember that every past was forged with pain, yet brightened by love and bonds stronger than fear. Standing under the awakening sky, they all shared an unspoken promise, a promise to hold on to one another, no matter the battles that lay ahead. And as they walked side by side, hearts full of possibility and ventures ahead, one thing became apparent: together, they could face whatever came. Darkness might lurk in the shadows, but the light of their unity would always shine brighter. Now, as they began their journey home, the sounds of laughter filled the air, a song of rebirth that echoed through the valleys, a celebration not just of victory, but of the enduring spirit of togetherness. And that was their ultimate triumph. This is the moment you've been waiting for. Be sure to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will take you on new adventures. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help us grow. Flood the comments section below with your reactions and theories about this epic ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Show your support and spread this journey far and wide. Your participation makes all the difference.